I'm Patrick McNeil.
And I'm Patrick Miller.
And together we're Faile.
Well, you know, Savage Sacred Young Minds is really referring to the young minds, and it's really looking at sort of the passions and contradictions of youth, where, you know, you're sifting through the cultural landscape to find authenticity and meaning, but then you're breaking that down and trying to find your own identity through that. Very much looking at this idea of sacred spaces, and, you know, where do you sort of have a reverence, and what do you connect to, and what speaks to you today versus, you know, in the past and in the future. I think those are things we're really interested in exploring through different spaces and environments and images.
And it ended up being just a really fun show. It was like the first show that we'd kind of done where it created a crazy environment where people came in and just, you know, enjoyed it in a way that was different than any other art show where you stand around and drink wine and kind of like look at work. It was fully engaging, it was loud and noisy, and people were like laughing and screaming, and there's just sounds in there that you wouldn't hear at an art show. And I think looking at arcades, we got excited just as a sculptural object, how they functioned, and the fact that they incorporated sound and digital media, and just like how it kind of encompassed all these different art forms. And, you know, one of the things we talked about is how icons kind of get broken down from something kind of high where you walk into a church and it's there presented in a carving of wood or ceramic or stained glass, and then going into a deli and maybe seeing Jesus or something as like a sticker that you could slap on your car or whatever, and
or
just
a
like
candle.
Or a candle. But this show kind of represents this high and low breakdown of icons from, you know, it's things that are done here in Mosaic and things that are done as like blacklight posters in the arcade.
And so this was a really kind of monumental challenge, if you will. Excuse the pun, but that was something we were really interested in, looking at how iconography lived in, you know, 100, 1,000 years ago versus the arcade, which very much speaks to today, and the sort of plugged in livelihood of it that is coming at you constantly and giving back in a much more quick fire way, whereas the temple is a much more sort of internal style. I also think another way we're looking at that is sort of through old world techniques of creating and making, which the temple really represents. One thing we were really talking about is these sort of artisanal crafts that are slowly disappearing in the world, and really trying to make work that represented that through the mosaics and the ceramics, and trying to be really traditional about that through gas-fired ovens and just things that you wouldn't do today necessarily. There would really never be time for that. Well, I think art, you know, we start all of our work with these sort of black and white images. And I think those are really inspired from a variety of sources, but we really look at them as these kind of jumping off narrative points. And I think we look at them a lot as these sort of, you know, taking these bits and pieces of the past and recontextualizing them to make them stories that sort of speak to issues today and that are contemporary, while still referencing the past. So I think that the way that image is grown is sometimes happens in sort of bursts where it'll be structured around a theme. We did a show in 2008 called Lost in Glimmering Shadows, which, you know, in 2008, before the financial crisis, we were really looking at just kind of how, you know, over-materialized everything felt and kind of greed-ridden. And we were really thinking about if Native Americans came back today and retook the city, what would that look like? And kind of using the Native Americans as a metaphor for nature coming back and retaking the city. So a lot of the imagery that you see in the temple now was from that series originally. And the prayer wheels are another example, you know, inspired by totem poles and Tibetan prayer wheels, and just really asking that question of what do we pray for in a modern society.
You know, it's just been one of those things that we've just kind of kept doing and enjoying, and it's kept evolving and getting more exciting.